And now I'm joined by Bob Whislow, the CEO of Parkside Realty. Such a cool place. His team is behind Fulton East, the 12-story commercial building in Chicago that's being called the world's first touchless and hospital-grade air-filtered office building. I cannot wait to get there myself when I can fly again. And then my friend Josh Kallmer is head of global public policy and government relations for Zoom, a name we all know now well, a platform that's almost a family member these days. Josh, let me just start with you. I mean, how do I put this? Let me just put it this way. You've known me for a long time, and we have been talking about the digital world, the digitization of everything, broadband, for literally decades, but we weren't quite there. This pandemic has now changed everything, and we are there. So both with your Zoom hat on, but on your broader understanding of the IT world, let me just ask you, what's going well and what's really wobbly we should be worried about?
Well, Steve, first of all, great to see you, and thanks to The Hill for having me. And you're right, up until 4 months ago, I was in a role at ITI representing the entire tech sector, and we thought a lot about the future of work. In that context, it mostly had to do with AI and automation and just the inexorable march of technology and how that was going to change jobs and work. And I think what we have found and what we're grappling with is at least in the short term, a very different but very profound kind of change, where it's not just that we're working from home, those of us who have the good fortune to be able to do that, and there are a lot who don't, that we need to be mindful of, but that our working from home is not nearly as bounded as work used to be. And so it is increasingly difficult to talk about the future of work without talking about the future of school or the future of family or even the future of faith, because people are now struggling and grappling with this need to separate coherently the different parts of their lives in sensible ways. And so I think one thing that we're doing well, and when I say we, I say it both on behalf of Zoom as a company and as a country and as an industry, is that we have the tools. We have good tools in place to do it. We're very proud of our platform, for example, and we're working hard to make sure that users have the security and the safety and the privacy mechanisms to do all these things effectively and securely. What I think we need to be increasingly thoughtful about, though, is the fact that lives aren't subdivided maybe the way that they were before, and that while I anticipate, and I agree with Paul Wolf here, that we won't stay in this state forever. We probably are in a forever changed status quo where the boundaries will be blurrier than they have been in the past. And we will need to be mindful of what that means for people and how we develop technology and how we develop public policies and how we deal with real estate in ways that accommodate that blurring of lives. Right.
Well, speaking of real estate, Bob, basically a block away from where I am. I'm right now basically at 16th and K streets in DC, and so a block from me at 17th and L streets is a shiny, brand new, just finished building that is not Fulton East, and it is unoccupied. It's very glittering and nice. Why don't you take us for a short journey? Give our viewers a journey of what the gap is between the very good building that just developed, but doesn't have any of that health sensitivity built into it. I've looked and made sure of this, and I don't want to knock it because it's pretty and I'd like to be there. But and what you're doing in anticipating the kinds of needs that buildings would have to have.
Well, thanks, Steve, and thanks for having me on the program. So Fulton East is a building that when we originally developed it, we developed it along the principles of biophobic design, which really means bringing nature into the inside of a building. So we started with health and wellness when we began developing the building 18 months ago. And by doing that, we had smaller floor plates with a very high percentage of exterior glass to square footage inside the building, very high ceiling heights, 11'4" on each floor, exterior balconies on every floor for every tenant, and an 8,000 square foot garden on the rooftop. When the pandemic hit, we did a really quick pivot and said we are designing a building for wellness, what do we do today? So we quickly began doing research in what do hospitals do to COVID-proof their buildings. And we looked at everything we could find. And we found a product, and we actually found it from Washington, D.C. area, a product called AirFix. We looked at bipolar ionization. We looked at UV lights for cleansing the air in the air system in the building. But this AirFix product is a very interesting product. It's a non-thermal plasma, which brings the air in from each floor of the building through a plasma cleansing device, which drops out the pathogens, the viruses, the bacteria, and the mold, and then brings back fresh air into the space. But as a byproduct of that fresh air, it brings in a gas form of hydrogen peroxide, about 0.03% hydrogen peroxide. That hydrogen peroxide does is it mixes with the air and it kills the bacteria and viruses in the air. But being a gas form, it also attaches to surfaces, so it kills the viruses on the surface. So we have installed this in every floor of our building. It will run continuously 24 hours a day, all year long, continue cleaning the air both within the building, in the air, and through the HVAC system itself as it filters through the system. And then in addition to that, we upgraded our filtering system to what's called a MERV 14 filter, which is just under the HEPA filters that hospital uses. But then we continued on to say, what are the touch points in the building? What's the dirtiest parts of a building? And it turns out that elevator buttons, because everybody touches them at every state of the day, are the dirtiest part of a building, the most germ-infected part of a building. So we looked at everything we could to find a way to make that elevator experience different. And a company called Mad Elevator Concept from Toronto, Canada, had installed previously in our building a beta test for something called a touch to go, which is basically an iPad on the wall of your elevator that replaces the elevator buttons. And the idea behind that originally was it's a glass screen, so it's very easy to disinfect by just wiping across it with a disinfectant wipe. But we wanted to go a step further, so we contacted them to find out what they were doing once the pandemic hit. And we were able to install in our building the first ever tow-to-go elevator system. And what this is our elevators were already all built in the building, but we retrofitted them with this system. So if you could imagine, you're in the hall and you go to press an elevator button, but instead you look down at the floorboard below there, at the baseboard, and like an accelerator pedal in a car, there's an up and down switch to touch with your toe. And that calls the elevator. When you get in the elevator, at the baseboard of the elevator, for us, it was a custom-made design that has 3 rows of small elevator of pedals, and you touch the pedal for the floor you go into, and you never have to touch anything in the elevator. So that's the second system we put in the elevator. And when we were doing our analysis of what hospitals do, which is where we found our AirFix machine,
right.
We also found that there's a new product on the market by the Sherwin-Williams paint company, which is called Paint Shield. And it's the only antimicrobial paint in the market. Again, our washrooms were finished. We're opening the building actually in a few weeks, but we repainted them all with this Paint Shield. And this Paint Shield, you apply it on with multiple coats. We use it in all the washroom walls. When bacteria and viruses land on this material, within 2 hours, it kills those viruses and those bacteria. You do have to reapply it every 4 years, but we felt that there was another additional investment we should put in the building.
I mean, it's really an
incredible. Those are some of the major things that we've done.
It's really an incredible story set of things. I've really been enjoying reading about the specs. I imagine your tenants are going to be very enthusiastic, and lots of folks are going to be ripping off your ideas. You know, I'm interested in whether you patented the combination of these things. But, you know, back to Josh for a minute. Josh, do you see the kinds of innovations that Rob is bringing to the workspace as friend or foe when it comes to Zoom's future?
I mean, I think they're friend. Like it is in Zoom's interest that people are happy and comfortable and have the things that they need to be their whole selves. I mean, one of the things that we've learned throughout the pandemic, because we were primarily a business for large enterprises beforehand, is that there are so many other ways that we can connect people, including in office settings, including in settings where people are physically close. And so we want to enable people to connect in whatever ways are consistent with the ways they want to live their lives. And I think to a significant degree, people are going to want to go back to offices, maybe not 5 days a week, maybe in a different format, but we absolutely, I think, see it as positive that people like Bob and others are coming up with just incredible innovations to not only ease us back, hopefully, into something resembling what we had before, but to building for the future.
Thank you. Bob, are you leased out? Are you leasing your property now?
The property will be ready to open in just about a month. And we're in the process of leasing, and we have multiple proposals. And the things we've done in the building has really gotten great attention. To Josh's point, we look at Zoom as a friend. One of the things that we did post-pandemic is on our rooftop, we created a large kind of stadium seating area, holds about 80 people, and we installed a new television system. In fact, it's just coming out this week that allows you to see TV in the daylight. So we have 4 large TV panels put together to be able to do things like Zoom conferences for our tenants who, may be global, maybe national, aren't flying to meetings, but yet can have people in an outdoor setting, in a healthy outdoor setting, and doing a Zoom conference.
I can't wait to visit it myself next time I'm allowed to fly and get to Chicago. But we have a question from a question from the audience from Kurt. Kurt?
Hi, my name is Kurt Cornelson. I'm a managing director with CBRE based out of Tampa. And my question is, how will office work of the future affect commercial real estate? Thank you.
So the question is really for both of you. How will just very quick answer if we could, but office work of the future affect the commercial real estate area? Obviously, Bob, I'm going to start with you because you're in that area.
Well, I think we don't know yet, and this is going to be a very interesting next year. But I do think that there's a scenario which says that the densification we've been having happen in office buildings for the last 7 or 8 years may reverse course. And it may actually mean that people need more office space than they have now. I don't think you're going to end up with offices where people are at benching situations, sitting directly across from somebody, with somebody on each side of them 3 feet away. I just think even if the pandemic has ended, I just think the psychological aspect of this has changed. There was already change in the workforce where people were reacting negatively to that kind of environment and escaping to other places to work. So I do think that the office will change. I think people will occupy more space. I think people will want to be in spaces that are healthy and well. I think wellness standards will become as important or maybe more important than sustainability standards, and the tenants and employees will look for that. And I do think you will incorporate things like Zoom into the workplace and into conference rooms. I think your conference rooms will have to be even more tech friendly than they've ever been before.
Thank you. And Josh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would just agree. I'm certainly not in as good of a position to opine on the commercial real estate market as such, but I think what Bob just said and what we were talking about a few minutes ago really resonates. People are going to think about spaces and what space means to work differently in a way that I think we can't totally predict, but we'll move in a lot of different directions. We've been working to be a presence in conference rooms and physical office spaces for some time, and we're continuing those efforts, including through partnerships with hardware companies. So whether people want to be physically together and connecting by Zoom with colleagues or customers or whatever around the world, or working from their homes or working from their cars on their mobile devices, I just think we can't predict it. And a responsibility and an opportunity that companies like ours, and I think companies like Bob's and many others have, is to try to anticipate those situations and be there for people when they settle out.
Well, my challenge is that when I joined the Hill, I told them I didn't need an office space. I would go to a coffee shop, do my little video conferences, and write my articles. So now I need a kind of, I need Bob Whislow's operation to make a safe wellness coffee shop for me someday. But I look forward, to many of the issues you both talked about to become embedded in more of our world. Bob Whislow, CEO of Parkside Realty, and Josh Kallmer, who's head of global public policy and government relations for Zoom. Thank you both so much for such a great conversation.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Come to Chicago, we'll show our building.
Got a deal.